If you would have told me, say a year ago, that we'd be celebrating Metroid's 35th anniversary with the extremely long-awaited Metroid 5, I mean, think about that for a second. The year this franchise turns 35 years old is also the year we get the 5th game in the mainline series. It's crazy. But not only that, Nintendo would treat this game like a real AAA release, giving it the full red carpet rollout that we usually see reserved for the likes of Mario and Zelda. I mean, it's gotten to the point where some people say maybe it's getting a little bit too much advertising. They're showing at least too much of this game, which I'd be inclined to agree. I've gotten to the point where I'm not going to watch any more trailers that drop. I'm only going to use footage here from the original announcement for the game because I feel like they are giving away, spoiling a bit too much of it. But as we're getting closer to release, we're even seeing like billboards pop up for it, and so it's absolutely insane. Obviously, all major decisions in this business, like most businesses, are made around money. Investors, CEOs, want games to be made that are going to turn their company a profit. Also advertise and position those games accordingly. The bigger games get more attention, better advertising pushes, etc. Also, companies are always watching what other companies are doing, what's succeeding, and what's failing across the board. And that's why Metroid Dread is looking to be extremely interesting to me for many reasons, not just because, I'm a fan of Metroid. I consider this to be, by far, easily, the most important game release of this year. I think it has a lot of implications, not just for this franchise itself. I mean, of course, everybody's looking at like, oh, we want this to succeed because we want more Metroid games. No, I think it goes way beyond that. I think this has implications for the wider scope of Nintendo, as well as just about every other company in this industry. I think everyone is paying attention to this game and how it gets received. The entire Metroid franchise hasn't had a big game in quite a while, but a new 2D classic Metroidvania, it's been almost 2 decades. Most of my entire life, probably even more so for you guys, since the last Metroid game. So that's a pretty big deal in itself. You've got, of course, fans of the franchise super hyped, thinking up to this point we might never get a full-fledged new entry in the series. I mean, if you gave up hope after almost 19 years without a new game, I can't really blame you. But the fact that this franchise has been dormant for so long seems to have attracted a lot of newcomers. I see tons of posts on social media with people saying they're extremely excited for Metroid Dread. They can't wait to play the first new Metroid game in all these years, and maybe they've only played 1 or 2 of the classic 2D side-scrolling Metroid games, or perhaps even none at all. The fact that the wait has been so long makes this feel like an event that people want to be a part of, even again if they aren't really big fans of the franchise to begin with. And Nintendo's been wisely leaning into all this, simultaneously celebrating the history of Metroid as well as continuing to hype up Metroid Dread. I only wish they'd celebrate by releasing all the games on, NSO or something like that. I think it's a big missed opportunity not allowing people to play Zero Mission, Fusion, Samus Returns even, to prepare for this game. Speaking of which, I know many of you may be thinking, ChiGuy, it's not like this is really the first new 2D Metroid in all this time. What about stuff like Samus Returns? Yeah, it was a remake, but still basically a new 2D Metroid, and it definitely didn't set the world on fire, nor was it some sort of game changer. Well, I think Samus Returns had a lot of things working against it. First and foremost, it being one of the last major 3DS releases, releasing when the Switch, a successor really to the 3DS, was already out and taking the world by storm. And of course, that new system was getting all the attention, all the advertising. There was no fanfare coming out of Nintendo for the 3DS or Samus Returns really during that time, and people reacted accordingly. Again, if you look at the reactions on, say, social media, you can immediately tell there's a big difference between Metroid Dread and Samus Returns. I think if Samus Returns would have been made specifically for the Switch, it would have gotten more attention, but even still not as much as Dread, with it being a full-fledged new entry, the next part of the story. but way more, I think, than it coming out on the 3DS. So at least in terms of the early indicators, the stuff we can go off of now, I don't think you could argue that there isn't not just genuine hype about this game, but desire to buy it. And at full price. This is very interesting to someone like me. If you follow my channel, you know this is one of my favorite things to discuss in games. Are different titles worth the price? And that's definitely going to be a discussion with Dread when it comes out. It's already a discussion being had now, in fact. Now, this isn't something we would have batted an eye at a few generations ago. Of course, Metroid is worthy of AAA game pricing, but as I alluded to, there are debates going on about whether or not this game should be $60. So why? Well, these days, we don't really see $60 Metroidvanias. We see these types of games in the indie realm, stuff like Hollow Knight, Ori and the Blind Forest, and Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. And that is going to be a hurdle, probably, for this game. But I'd say for a lot of people, myself certainly, have many issues with modern-day AAA games. While sure, many modern AAA games offer up these expansive open worlds for you to explore, cutting-edge graphics and all that, they also increasingly tend to nickel and dime players at every turn with all sorts of DLC, microtransactions, loot boxes. You've got like, which Assassin's Creed was it? I think it was Assassin's Creed Odyssey that introduced XP boosts, which that on its own, I just love the idea of a single-player game putting paid XP boosts in, and surprise, surprise, players started saying, hey, this game feels really grindy. Like I'm not leveling up fast enough and, enemies are killing me really easily. It turned into a little bit of a controversy, didn't get enough attention in my opinion, and the developers ended up coming out and being like, yeah, maybe you're right, we're gonna make some changes to the level scaling. Like it was a scam, they were trying to scam you into paying for the XP boosts in a single player game. I saw the new Battlefield 2042. That game's like, oh, you're going to have to pay. Don't forget, with a lot of these games, you're going to have to pay more money for the newer gen versions. It's $70 on Xbox Series X and PS5. They're putting in the paid Battle Pass, which pretty much every multiplayer game now has to have. And on top of that, this one doesn't have a story mode, a campaign. So you're paying more right off the bat with the box price if you want it on the next-gen consoles. They're going to nickel and dime you more and give you less. So myself, I look at games like this and, bringing back into this idea of, should a 2D Metroidvania charge $60 in 2021? Again, while obviously I haven't played it at face value, I'd pay $60 for Metroid Dread before I'd pay $30 for Battlefield 2042 or, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Yeah, everybody's always so obsessed with progress. We gotta move forward. Maybe it's time to admit some of the progress this industry has made hasn't been so great. So I'd like to see a game like this succeed, also to just kind of send that message of, hey, a quality, complete product, even if it's something considered to be more simple, I guess, can charge that higher price tag, and at the end of the day may actually be a better value in terms of an experience, a complete experience, than some of these other more advanced-looking AAA games. So I do think there are people who are sick of a lot of the modern AAA monetization practices too. But the gameplay style, I get, will be a hurdle for some, but if it can get over that hurdle, be a big success, then I honestly would assume we're going to see more releases like this that bring back a classic franchise and maybe give AAA treatment to genres that we don't see get much of that today. I mean, staying with Nintendo, a franchise like F-Zero comes to mind. They haven't done anything with that series in a long time either. Futuristic, stupidly high-speed racing was common back in the day on like the SNES, N64 and that. Similarly, relegated mostly to indie games, stuff like Fast RMX, which is considered to be, the spiritual successor to F-Zero. But we're certainly not getting much like that in the AAA realm. Nowadays, your racing games mostly consist of either Sims or the really wacky party stuff like Mario Kart. But if dusting off classic Metroid after 2 decades ends up working out, ends up killing it sales-wise, again, this marketing of, oh, we haven't seen a Metroid game in so long, it could work for something like F-Zero. Of course, once more, the game still has to be impressive. I want to make that clear. I'm sure there are going to be people who are trying to act like, oh, you just want people to buy this game so they get more of it. No. I actually hate when companies try to act like, oh, you better buy this game if you want to get more of it. No. If you make a good game, I'll buy it, people should support it, and you should make more of it. But yeah, if you're not going to get by on the Metroid name, you're definitely not going to get by on just the F-Zero name. So we'd have to see some face-melting speed racing and a killer soundtrack for something like this, but it could work. Personally, I'd love to see Microsoft consider similarly dusting off Banjo-Kazooie. The idea that even something like Perfect Dark now is getting a revitalization before Banjo-Kazooie. I think Banjo-Kazooie, especially when you already have like your Halo and Gears and stuff, makes a lot more sense. But again, if they see this stuff succeeding, maybe that'll make them want to pull this stuff out. And just like before, the name alone isn't going to sell copies, but like I'm playing Ratchet & Clank A Rift Apart right now, and could you imagine a Banjo-Kazooie game taking full advantage of the Xbox Series X and having that level of quality? I mean, that could just be amazing. Also, the marketing rights itself, the first new Banjo-Kazooie adventure in over 20 years. No one's gonna count nuts and bolts. Oh, it's not that bad, ChiGuy. Actually, no, it's worse. If a 2D Metroid game can succeed at $60, what about the latter half of the Metroidvania name, Castlevania? Certainly that could succeed as well, right? I'd love to see a blown out new Symphony of the Night style game. Obviously, Konami these days, if it's not a pachinko machine, they really don't care, but I could dream. What about something like Mega Man? Sure, Mega Man is still around these days. It's of course not like, oh, we haven't had a Mega Man game in decades, but he's certainly not treated like he was back in the day. He's actually treated more like an indie level IP, let's be honest. What would a Mega Man game look like in the next couple years with a AAA level budget and advertising campaign? I mean, I don't know, but I think it could be phenomenal. And you have to assume, once more, all these companies sitting on these IPs and franchises, they're watching what happens with Metroid Dread, and they're going to react accordingly. So to close, I think if Metroid Dread ends up being a big success, and I'm not saying it's got to be on the top 10 sales chart for the Switch, anything like that, but if it does get it within even striking distance of some of these, let's say, more common modern-day AAA games, yeah, I definitely would think that opens the door for similar retro revivals. To be clear, though, the games, all the games, Dread included, still need to be great. Especially if you're going to charge a full $60 price tag. Don't think for a second, even though I have been fanboying out about this, I'll be there making my video about whether or not this game is worth $60. And if it's not, I'll be the first one to tell you. I mean, you guys know I'm not that kind of fanboy. I'll be the most pissed off if I'm disappointed after waiting 19 freaking years. I was playing Metroid Fusion on my Game Boy Advance during recess 19 years ago, and have waited for this game since then. You better not disappoint me. And if this succeeds, I do think we'll be seeing way more of it, but on the other hand, if Dread fails, we're probably going to see people stick to what works. So hopefully the game turns out amazing, and as a result, people support it. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Metroid Dread and what its implications could be for the rest of the industry in the comments. Are you hyped for the grand return of classic 2D Metroid? And do you think its success as a full-price $60 game could lead to other similar major returns in the future? As always, I'm the Shy Guy, Johnny Zakari, and thanks for watching.